Hey, everybody. I'm Portia Sabin, president of the Music Business Association. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we felt it was important to do a special edition of our Music Biz Live series focused on mental health. So here we are. Welcome to that special event, Mind Your Health, where we will take a closer look at how our industry is moving towards supporting artists and executives alike, both professionally and personally. And I have to say, I'm excited to see so many healthcare professionals in the chat. That's very exciting. So welcome to everybody. We're grateful to see that the conversation around mental health and wellness is changing in the music industry. Where it was typical in the past to ignore mental health issues or leave them unaddressed in favor of getting the job done and getting on to the next album, tour, or whatever, a lot of businesses in our industry have moved towards collaborating with their employees on meaningful solutions. That's what led to our first partnership with the SCARS Foundation. Thanks to them and to Music Health Alliance here in Nashville, we established our mental health fund to support those in our member community struggling financially to get access to mental health screenings, therapy sessions, and other vital services. Especially after the pandemic year, it felt very important to recognize that we all struggle to maintain our mental health, and finances should never be a barrier to getting help when you need it. If you think you or someone you know could use this fund, please follow the link in the chat to find out more about the Music Business Association Mental Health Fund. That's also why we programmed this event, to create another forum for artists, music executives, and educators to share their perspectives on mental health issues and how our industry's approach to supporting mental health needs is changing. This, in turn, we hope, will further help destigmatize this important topic that affects us all. To kick off this event, please welcome my first guest. Sully Erna is the lead singer of the multi-platinum selling band Godsmack, and he established the SCARS Foundation to help raise awareness about mental health issues and to provide resources and tools to educate and empower people around the world. Sully, welcome to Music Biz Live.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, great to see ya.
Good to see you too.
So why don't you just lay it on us? Tell us your story. How did you come to decide that mental health was the issue that you wanted to focus on and start a foundation around?
Oh, wow.
Small question.
Yeah, let's just like open up the can and dump the worms right out.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I was raised in the suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts, in an inner city called Lawrence, Massachusetts. And it was a very challenging, and still continues to be a very challenging inner city. And it's, it has its obstacles for sure, with gangs and drugs and violence and crime and all the things that you kind of don't want a young kid being raised in that environment. And throughout the years, I found that later, when I kind of grinded through that and got to the other side and became somewhat successful in my career, I started to reflect back on wanting to give back, wanting to be a part of something to help others. And I really just couldn't find my lane, because fortunately, I will say for me, I was never affected by someone who had passed away from AIDS or cancer, or where I could put some of my money or my time and energy. And I really struggled with wanting to give back, but not really knowing where my experience was. And then as I thought of my upbringing and everything I went through and the challenges that I faced surviving this really gnarly city, I realized that that's probably where my most experience was in life, was just learning how to survive, learning how to beat the demons. And, fast forward all these years and years and decades later, I had composed a song called Under Your Scars, which became one of our singles on our last record. And that song topic really tackled everything about being secure with yourself, trying to overcome the imperfections about us as individuals. Everybody has these battle wounds and these scars, whether they're physical or emotional, and how we overcome them, or sometimes we don't, and we have tragedies because of it. And a lot of that is funneled through depression, and that's where we become really quiet and silent and internal, and that's where the damage gets done, or we lose people. And so I started to put everything together, and when I started to realize what the lyrical content was about and the meaning behind the depth of understanding that we don't need to be perfect, that we don't need to try to chase that perfection our whole life, but in return, embrace these imperfections and know that that's what makes us perfect, is the imperfections, these scars, these badges of honor that we wear, and that show us how we've gotten through the struggles and the life that we've endured to become the people that we are today. And so I was like, this is probably the best lane for me to be in, because I'm not a PhD. I don't have schooling for this per se, but I have a lifetime of experience with it. And I think that sometimes is what you can connect with people who are very internal and quiet and afraid to open up and tell their stories, or vent their problems, or whatever it is that they're struggling with. Sometimes I think it takes someone who's just lived with it to have that person open up, instead of them feeling like they're in a room with a therapist and that kind of very formatted style of therapy. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of how the whole thing came out for me, and just trying to understand where my strengths and weaknesses were in life and how I could be of help.
Yeah. And do you find, I think there's been so much, in the press and just in the world about, men have trouble getting in touch with their feelings. I feel like it's like, it's a joke at this point. It's like The Sopranos, right? Like that, the whole point of that whole show was, this tough mafia guy who wasn't going to a therapist because he needed, mental health, and everyone was like, oh my God, he's doing that. But it's like, do you feel like over your lifetime, you've seen it getting a little bit easier for men and for people who, have to look tough on the outside to just say, hey, I actually need some help?
I do think we still have those challenges to try to help with, but I see it on both sides. I don't see it being such a male dominated issue anymore. I see it with children. I see it with women. Sometimes more so with women now for me than even with men. I still even have some of my friends that are just kind of that, Budweiser drinking, Joe work boot, and they just you can't get into deep conversation with them, right? Because they're just like, yeah, that's cool, dude. And then they're like back to the clicking the channels. But they're there, there's definitely those, I know plenty of those kind of men that still struggle with opening up, being vulnerable in those ways, understanding that like asking for help is actually the best thing you can do, and fast tracks you a little bit more to healing. But I see it a lot with women too. I see it a lot with women that have divorced, right? Because they wanted out, they couldn't take the marriage anymore. They got what they needed. They got the kids, they got the house, and then they're out and they're just feeling alone. And there's different entry points, I think, to people's depressive state of mind that triggers it, right? Sometimes it's addiction, sometimes it's bullying, sometimes it's PTSD, it could be whatever. But for whatever reason, I think it's a good variety of people and pretty equivalent at this point. At least since I've started the Scars Foundation, I've learned how massive of a problem this really is, because I know in my world, I could name, dozens of people that could use this kind of help. But then when you open this up to the general public, the rest of the globe, you realize that like, just the way the song reacted alone, getting 50 million views when everything else we did got a couple million views. I'm like, wait a minute here. This is connecting with people on an emotional level, seriously. So this is a global problem. And we've seen it over and over again. I've lost 2 or 3 people to suicide over my time, very close friends of mine. And I've seen, like, witnessed people commit suicide on tour, loading into a building, someone comes off the roof and things like that. And these are in other countries. And I'm thinking, man, it was never an issue, or seemed not to be an issue before in the public eye. It was dismissed to be, oh, you're depressed, go take a nap kind of thing, where it's not as simple as that. And it is a real issue, and it has to be addressed in a medical sense, and, anything else we can do in these communities that we're creating, like yourself and Scars Foundation and things like that. We need a lot of everything to really help put a dent in this.
Yeah, definitely. And you've been in the music business a long time, so you know how it is. An album cycle with a band, it's always boom, 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 on to the next thing. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And, the more and more successful you get, the more work there is, which I always think is like a funny conversation to have with kids who want to be rock stars. Cause I'm like, really? Do you know how hard it is? Like the work increases exponentially. It's not like you put out a hit album, you make $1 million and you retire and never have to do any more work. Like it gets harder, drive time radio and interviews and just, it goes on and on and on. And I think a lot of times in the music business in particular, that stuff gets, mental issues and just wellness, personal wellness gets really shoved down because it's like, no, we have to move forward. We're on this train that's moving forward. So we have to move to the next thing, move to the next thing. We can't take this time to like think about like maybe I have a problem or maybe there's something that I really need to deal with.
Yeah, and just quiet time sometimes. That's really healthy for us, right? And so it's one of the things that I wanted to mention on this conversation. I stumbled across yet another thing recently that I guess I just never really looked at it at this angle, but we at the Scars Foundation, and I think people who try to deal with mental health issues in general, our main focus, right? Our initial focus is to flush it out, because we call it the silent killer, for instance, right? Because if you can't see it, you can't hear it, no one's talking about it, and next thing you know, some tragedy happens, you always have that of, I could have helped if I just knew, right? I lost a friend of mine to suicide. He took his life, hung himself because he was on depression meds, antidepressant meds. It ran out. He's breaking the pills in half to stretch them out. He doesn't want to ask anyone for help. He's embarrassed to even tell people he's on meds. He runs out. And then next thing you know, he takes his life because he spirals out. And so I think it's really important that, we not only flush this stuff out, because that's the first step, but people, we always talk about how people tend to go silent during these times, right? And we don't know because they're just not vocalizing it. And we sit here and preach about how dangerous it is to be internal, right? That's one of our main things here. Don't be internal. Speak about it, talk about it, tell us your stories. We'll tell you ours, it's the first steps in the healing. But then there's the flip side of this coin where I feel like you also need quiet time, and you have to be able to identify when you need quiet time, because the world's, there's too much information. I just need to quiet my head. And when you're being too quiet for the wrong reasons, you understand? I think that's something for me that really struck me. I was intrigued by recently, and I stumbled onto it through a casual conversation with my friend Snake when I was doing his show. And I was like, oh, there it is. Like, so we have to, I think, clearly help people understand when it's a bad time to be quiet and when it's necessary to quiet your head, right? Because there's a lot of that as well. And sometimes we get all the advice and we're trying to process it all and whatever, and that could spin you out. And I think it's important that people need to know it's okay. It's okay to go take a walk by yourself. It's okay to sit in a room by yourself. It's okay to be alone. You have to be comfortable in your own skin. There's times where that's needed because it helps balance us, especially if you live in a world like we do, where we're on tour. It's like being inside a tornado. Everything goes real quick and it's nonstop. And then you're on break and it's like, the brakes are on, and then you're in a quiet house and they go, yeah, you're all done. See you on the next record. And you're like, what do you do with the silence? But it's important that you kind of embrace it and try to ground yourself, balance back out, right? Because it's a very tricky world that we live in. It's, you have to be able to know who you are, stay grounded through this kind of stuff, and not get lost in the fame and fortune of it, because it can create a false perception of who you are.
Absolutely. No, definitely. And that's, I've talked to some bands who have like started meditation or yoga practices that they do on tour as well as at home, because it creates that consistency. So it's like I'm doing the same thing at the same time every day, whether I'm on tour or at home. So it's like it's not quite as jarring, that transition. Yes. But the other thing about being in a band that's really, my husband always says this, being in a band is the only job where you're encouraged to drink on the job. Like it's kind of part of the deal, right? It happens at night. It usually happens in bars. Like it's pretty pretty part and parcel of the band. And so we end up in the music industry with a lot of addiction issues in artists and in executives, So, I mean, we go out at night to bars too, to see bands, and, you go to the bar, you get a drink, start that at 8 o'clock at night or whatever. And, these 20 years later. So, there's a lot of addiction issues too. And that's another layer, right? That's another layer of not wanting to come forward and not wanting to let people know what's really going on inside.
Yeah, alcohol creates hangovers. Hangovers are pain, and no one gets along well when you're in pain. That's what I've learned. It's not a good time to have serious discussions and confrontations when all your nerve endings are irritated from the alcohol you drank the night before. So you have to know your boundaries. You have to be able to pay attention to your DNA, your bloodline, your history, see if there's problems there from other members in your family. If it's something you need to even identify as being an alcoholic or an addict. There's some people that can drink socially and they're fine. They can have a couple drinks every now and then and do their thing and be out with their girlfriends for dinner or their, guy friends watching a football game. And there is no addiction problem there. But we have to be mindful of it and how bad are we abusing ourselves, and are we using it as a medicinal sense? Because there's an underlying issue going on with pain and aloneness and depression, and thinking that it's a Band-Aid to relieve those moments, instead of, again, sitting uncomfortably in your own skin and understanding that that's part of what you should be doing, is knowing it's okay to feel uncomfortable. We're humans. We're not going to have the same emotion every day. We're wired who knows who created this? It could be the aliens, right? We're technology or something, I don't know, but we were born with these instincts, with these inner kind of moods and emotions, and they're not going to be consistent every day. And on those days that they're not feeling good and you're down and out, if you could understand that it's just a moment in time and it will pass, it doesn't last forever, and you can sit with it a bit, and understand it's just part of the process, the next day will be a better day. And if it's not, the day after that will be. And if it's lingering, that's when you need to know that, like, something's going on. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to get help. And it's certainly okay to be vulnerable. That's one of the key things. And when people can get past the vulnerability part, because that's when you get exposed, right? And nobody wants to have them be seen in that light. They want to look cool. They want to look pretty. They want to be tough, whatever it is. They don't want other people to see them in that vulnerability stage. So that's the hard part. And when you can just take that first step and start opening your mouth, or taking a pen and paper and writing it down, just get it out so it can be visible. Sometimes it's another person that can help you cross into the next part, or other times it just feels even a little bit better when you can get it out on a piece of paper. Yell if you got to yell, swear if you got to swear, whatever it is that the emotion is, do it for yourself. You never even have to show anyone the piece of paper. But I learned through losing my first friend to suicide when I was 18 years old. He was always crying wolf. There was always a problem with him and his girlfriend arguing and fighting, and he's always threatening to kill himself. And, after years of that, you just go, okay, sure, Dave, and then one day he goes home from a party after an argument with her, and sure as, he takes his life. And then it's like, I found myself on the floor of my girlfriend's bedroom one day when she was at work. And I just kind of had this breakdown, and I was writing lyrics. I hadn't even really knew how to write a song yet, but I was writing lyrics. And it was more about just getting out how I thought he must have felt being in that depth of pain. Because I've felt tons of pain in my life, and some of it I feel was pretty intense, but I'm thinking, what level was he feeling it at for him to actually do it, right? Because that's the whole nother level. And as I was processing this, I was breaking down, I was emotional and crying, and that became the song. But before it became a song, I remember just feeling that much better after I had that breakdown and I processed the words. I got them out. I couldn't speak to anyone about it, but I got them out through pen and paper. And even that little bit made me feel better. And that's when the light bulb went off and I went, oh, I get it. Now I understand why I have this gift. It's not just to be superstar rock and roll guy and trash hotel rooms and have fun and live like this rock star dream. Maybe, you know, I have a voice for a reason here, and music is to help people. And if I can do this the right way now and start understanding that, you know, when my voice gets out there, even through my music and my lyrics, that it's going to help one person, I have to be responsible for that. And I think that's when everything changed for me. And I started writing about my feelings and processing all these things that traumatized me when I was younger, and all these things that made me angry or feel internal. And really, I built a career off it. I have a lot of records about my life. So,
yeah, which is, you know, that's really also quite impressive when you figure your genre, you know, the genre that your band is in is not usually like, let's talk about our feelings metal band, you know, like it's
you would think, but
right?
there's a lot you can go back and listen to a lot, whether it's Pantera or whether it's Bon Jovi or whoever, Aerosmith. There's a lot of, it's out there. You know, I think some of the greatest art in the world was created from painful moments. Beautiful art was created from pain. Amy Winehouse, Alice in Chains, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin. I mean, you name it, it can go on forever. Johnny Cash. I mean, it's out there. You know, you can really read someone's autobiography through their albums if you're paying attention to how they write, how they articulate their art. Because sometimes it's black and white, like Adele, right? She tugs on everyone's heartstrings because she's so raw when she writes. Then there's other people that are more creative and artistic with their lyrics. And so you got to figure out the puzzles, but that's part of who they are.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why those of us who love music, right? Because it connects with us on some level and it makes us feel something, you know, often better.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah,
And music is therapy. It's, you know, I know every artist talks about that, but it really is something that connects to people on an emotional level. You know, you can be in the middle of Russia watching a concert next to somebody that you can't even communicate with, and yet you can both get this amazing experience from the concert that you're watching, or for someone singing or playing a violin that could bring you to tears. And it's because everything is based on vibration. You know, when you think about music in that way, music is nothing more than sound waves, you know, and sound waves are nothing more than frequencies, and frequencies are just simple vibrations. So whether a piano string is vibrating or a drum head is vibrating or a guitar is vibrating, for some reason, when these vibrations come in contact with the human body, it creates emotion. And that has always been, for me, the miracle of music. It's a universal language.
Absolutely. That's kind of fabulous. So, so when you know, now you're at the place you're in your career, when you meet younger musicians, you know, how do you talk to them about the journey that they're on? Or do you?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because the world has changed so much since we got a deal. When we got a deal, it was more analog in the world of selling them out of the trunks of your car, and, you know, having your own brother selling you t-shirts, and, you know, schlepping around in someone's broken down rusty van. Today, you know, we have YouTube and all these incredible internet platforms that you can put your music out and click a button and someone in Egypt can hear you. So it's still challenging, but it's hard to give someone the same advice modeled after how we got there, which is, again, just timing, really. There's a lot of luck, a little bit of talent and a lot of luck. And today, I think it's more about I think the general message that would survive over the years is just determination. So you have to be set on, how do I say this? You have to be okay with accepting defeat, right? Because everyone trains their kids. All parents want everyone to succeed, and we always prepare them for success and reward, but no one ever prepares us for disappointment. And I think if you can prepare them for disappointment and have them understand that no matter what, time after time that you fail and life knocks you down to your knees, if you are strong enough to be able to get back up and walk another step forward and try another day, It's just a matter of time before it lines up for you and you'll have an opportunity. And then what you do with that opportunity at that point, completely up to you, right? Because it's easy to blow it too. It's easy to be irresponsible and not understand the business and let everyone handle your affairs and lose all your money, or get involved in drugs, or, you know, be too arrogant and lose your relationships in business and in your life. It really is a full-time commitment. Right? Any one of us who've done this, you know, in our lives seriously for a career, I can guarantee you, no matter who it is that you ask, will tell you the amazing amount of sacrifices they've made to get here, because they wanted it more than ever. So you have to want it that much, but you have to be willing to prepare yourself for disappointment and get through it, not get defeated from it and walk away, because it's going to happen over and over again. It's the people that know how to stand back up and reach inside themselves and find their inner strength. Those are the people that will go on to succeed.
Particularly like what you said about understanding the music business, like making the commitment to understanding your business, because being in a band is being a small business. It really is. And you have employees, and you have a team, and you have people who help you in the ways that you need help, not just randomly. And to understand that, I think I always say to bands, like, there needs to be a level of respect for the music industry, because it's a very complicated, strange business. We're a patchwork of historical accidents, basically. I mean, listen, publishing alone, right? Give me a break. It's like a master class right there. And, 2 years worth of.
Still don't understand it.
Exactly. It takes forever to understand what's going on in publishing. But, it's like, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you can dismiss it. You have to actually say, this is real. These are income streams that are coming to me. And I always say to artists, like, I've had artists say to me, like, oh, I'm not that type. I'm artistic. I like to think about whatever, the clouds and the birds. And I'm like, that's awesome. But if you're making money and you're not paying attention to that, somebody else is.
Right.
Ask
MC Hammer about that story and see what happened there. How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, because if there's money coming in, you better be getting it. Like, make it your business to get it. Don't let somebody else get it.
I'll tell you, I learned that the hard way, because I had a small deal right before I even started this band. And it was a small punk metal band that I was doing. And we got a deal with Sire Reprise on Warner Brothers. And it was the perfect example of that. We were young. We were doing drugs. We were drinking. We were partying all the time. There wasn't one person in the band with any kind of business sense. It was just about a giant party and irresponsibility. And that band self-destructed within 2 years of the deal. And then everything crashed and burned for me. And I started thinking, wow, here it is. I've been in music my entire life. I started when I was 3.5 years old, literally taking lessons. My dad's a musician. My great uncle was a famous composer from Sicily. Like, music has run in my bloodline forever. And I worked my whole life. I sacrificed family and relationships and school to just keep going forward, because I knew, luckily, from a very young age, what I wanted to do with my life. And I got it, and I blew it. And I quit. I went down and I quit. I cut my hair. I got a job, and I was seeing all my friends with a nice car and an apartment. And I just felt like a loser. I was bumming $5 off my sister to get a pack of cigarettes at the time when I used to smoke and all that. And I was like, man, I'm in my mid-20s now, and everyone else is starting to do well. And I could see that. And I'm still sleeping on my sister's couch. Like, I quit. I'm done. And I gave up music at that point. And then about a year later, I got the itch, because it's in your blood and it doesn't go away. And that's another story. But that's when my friend Dave had taken his life, and I wrote that piece. And I was like, I need to do this. Like, I need to just be involved in music. And that's when I gave up just being a drummer in a band, because that was my first instrument my whole life. And I decided to write my own music. And then a few friends showed me some chords, and I started to play around and, self-taught guitar and piano and whatever other instrument that I learned how to play. And I started creating music, but I created it through the honesty and vulnerability of what I needed to express. And, I come from a tough background, so it doesn't surprise me now that the early music was really tough and edgy. I think that's just a reflection of the anger and things that were inside of me. And as you see the evolution of Godsmack now, and we get to the other side, it's, it's not like butterflies and rose petals, but it's certainly more, light feeling and feel good. And because my life has come to that side now, I'm not as angry as I was when I was young and hurt. I processed a lot of that stuff and healed from it. And so, there is the other side of that. And I just think people are afraid to go down that long road because they can't see the end sometimes. But you have to trust the process and know that it'll come. You just have to start going down the road. As a matter of fact, I'll share one quick thing with you that I think you'll appreciate. So when I was in a really, really tough point in my life, I was at this crossroads and I just couldn't figure out which way to go. I was just really, really struggling in life. Things from my childhood with my dad that I was battered from, broken heart in a relationship, my family's all over the place, and just nothing felt stable in my life. And I really had to change something, and I was trying to figure out. And I went and talked to a friend of mine who's a very world-renowned astrologer. And I was thinking, I don't know if I want to go on, because is this real? Like, am I going to get factual help here, or just an opinion based on the moon and the stars? And so, but I believe in a lot of that stuff. So I was like, you know what? I just want to go see what she maybe can get from this. And granted, she's a friend now, but she wasn't at the time. I didn't know her. This is my first reading with her. And she, out of all the stuff she said, it was all fine and nothing was like super clicking. But in the middle of this reading, she stopped and she just closed her eyes and she looked at me. When she opened her eyes, and she knew nothing about me or my life. And she goes, I just got the most beautiful message. And I'm like, okay, let's hear it. And who told it to you? So she goes, I feel that you're at this like transitional point where you're at like a crossroads. She actually said the word crossroads. And she goes, and I was told to tell you that if you go to your left, you'll face demons. And if you go to your right, you'll face angels. But both roads lead to heaven. And I go, what? And she goes, that is the most beautiful message I've ever heard. And I go, what exactly does that mean? She goes, it means you can't fail. It's just one way is going to be a little harder than the other, but you're going to get to your destination. And I broke down right there, and I was like, I can't. So I always share that with people because sometimes you can't see it when you're in an intersection and everything looks foggy and you don't know which way to go or where it's going to lead to. You have to trust that you're going to get to exactly where you're supposed to get if you just continue to go forward.
That is amazing. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. So we have a few more minutes here. Do you want to let us know about, like, are there some things that you do in terms of like your mental health practices, well-being in the world, like just how you've found to go through the world that's helped?
Well, yeah, I mean, some of them I've touched upon. I've learned over time that everything for me is about balance. And I have to know when to be quiet and when not to be quiet. That's number one. Because sometimes we just need to sit still and be okay in your own skin. If you feel like there's this thing burning your chest and it's just like you're filling up and you know what that feeling feels like, although the face and the body look calm and you're very quiet in your bedroom, there's this thing that's just like you can't even control it. That's not a good silence. That's a silence that you need to talk about. That's a silence that you need to get out of your body and write down. If you're not ready to talk to someone yet, just get a journal. I would strongly suggest that. For other people, for me, sometimes it's running, it's exercise. I really want to get out, and I enjoy different exercises for different reasons. If I'm feisty and I'm like, I want to bang someone's head off a wall because I'm just in that mood that day, I box. I've been boxing for 20 years. So I go and I hit the bag and I get a little bit more of an aggressive workout, but it's still a cardio thing. If I'm in a peaceful mood and I just want to think about my thoughts and work out some problems, I go for a run. But all those endorphins getting released as well is really, as you know, a medical fact that helps the body feel better in the mind. So for me, my biggest suggestion would just be to find your outlet, because I think everyone has one. You could be a painter, you could be a musician, you could be an athlete, but find your outlet and utilize those tools that you've collected along the way in your life when you need them. Even when you're feeling the ugliest, because that's the hardest time, by the way, to get up off the couch and go for a run or want to write a song or whatever. But I think it's your inner spirit or someone tapping you, it's someone beating from the inside saying, I got something to say and I need to get it out, and you should pay attention to it and just let the pen flow and see what happens. Let that paintbrush flow or whatever it is that you do. And I think if you understand that every time you do that, you'll feel a little bit better. And then the lengths of time feeling better grow and grow and grow. Kind of like when you stop smoking, if you've ever had that problem, when you first put it down, you're just pulling your hair out. Every 30 seconds, you want a cigarette. And then as days go by, you don't think about it for every 2 hours. And then you don't think about it for a day at a time. And then it's a week. And next thing you know, you've stopped. So I think it's the same process. You heal a little bit at a time, but every time you'll feel a little bit better for a little bit longer, and you'll know you're on the right path. Yeah,
that's so true. It's so hard, I think, in the music industry in particular, because artists are expected to be open, to be able to connect with their feelings, because that's how people write the most beautiful music and the most, music that connects with so many other people. But it's kind of like being open like that is also a little bit dangerous, right? Because you're open to all that bad stuff too.
Well, you're just exposed and you're raw and you're super vulnerable, right? And like I said, no one wants to be perceived that way. People want to be perceived. See, that's the false illusion that we've given people over time, is that, and it's based on a lot of like celebrity status and people in the limelight, because they're only letting themselves be seen when they're in that place. But go watch like Lady Gaga's 5'2" documentary and Amy Winehouse's documentary. And they can also show you the other side of it, right? Because most of the time we're done in a way that we're in the limelight and it's kind of like lights, camera, ready, here we go. And it's not like that. We're the same people that get yelled at because we can't close the dishwasher the right way. Or like you have to let the dog out to poop and take out the trash. And so, you can't be fooled by that illusion of fame, right? And the celebrity status. You have to just understand that being vulnerable, being raw, being open is only at points in your life where you need that to heal. Because when you open up and someone's allowed to crack you open and they can get in there and share some of their stuff, then it's just another way for you to not only release some of that stuff, but understand a little bit more about it and continue to heal yourself. So the next time you find yourself going dark or feeling a problem, maybe you have a little bit more tools to work with through other people that have shared with you. Yeah.
Well, Sully, thank you so much. This has been so awesome. And it's been very helpful. And I want to thank you also for the work you do with the Scars Foundation. It's fantastic. And we really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad I could help in any way.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so next up, my friends, we have an exciting event. We have a Q&A and a live performance by Gina Royale. She is going to be in conversation with David Philp, who is at William Patterson University. And I think we have them both here with us. There's Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
And there's Gina. Hi.
Hey, guys.
All right, you guys, great to see you. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Portia. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Big thanks to the Music Business Association for being advocates during Mental Health Awareness Month, which is all of May. And we're here today to talk about Gina Royale, who's with us. And she has a new song that came out about a week and a half ago called Here's to You, which was released specifically in May because of mental health awareness. And what we're going to do for you guys today is play different parts of the song. We're going to talk about some of the lyrics so that you can get an understanding of what it is. And then she's going to perform the whole song for everybody. Afterwards, I'll throw in the chat the link to the video. You guys can take a look at the video, which is really effective. Stream the song when you get the opportunity. And hopefully it resonates with you during this month and even after the month is over. Because as I was looking through the chats, this is a safe space where we are right now. And hopefully when we leave this session where we are today with the music biz and with Scars, hopefully when we go out in the rest of our lives, we can think of the world as a safe space for us, and we can do good things and do what we're meant to do. So Gina, thank you so much for being with us today.
So excited to be there. Hello.
Yes, it is awesome to have this opportunity. And so briefly, could you just tell us what Here's to You is about and why you wrote this song with Rob Freeman?
Yeah, so Here's to You is basically an anthem paying homage to anybody who's ever struggled with any kind of mental health issues in their entire life. For me, you know, it stems from, I suffer from OCD, I have eating disorders, and it can be a lot. It can be really overwhelming. And I know that so many people, more than we realize, resonate with that same kind of feeling, regardless of what they're going through. So this song is basically just like, I see you, I hear you, and I'm here for you.
Great. So why don't we take the very first section of the song, and why don't you play that for us and then stop after that first line ending with the word tired.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
All right.
I'm tired of fighting with myself. I'm tired of living in this living hell. I'm tired of convincing myself I'm not tired.
So that's a great line. The I'm tired of convincing myself I'm not tired is a great bookend. People will hear that also at the very end of the song. It's the very last line. Where did that come from? I'm tired of convincing myself I'm not tired. Where does that come from with you?
So in like around from between like October of 2019 to like December 2019, January 2020, I had the pleasure of working seasonal part-time at the Amazon Fulfillment Center. And I hated it so much. So it was kind of a point where I was driving home one day from work, absolutely just so overwhelmed and like defeated. I was a recent college grad with a music degree. I'm a gigging musician myself, a singer-songwriter, trying to make a name in this world. And I was driving home in the rain, as cliche as it sounds, crying from my job that I hated, that had nothing to do with what I wanted to do. And I just started kind of, I write a lot of my songs in the car actually, and it just kind of came to me like, oh my gosh, I'm just so tired of pretending everything is fine and everything's normal. And I think it's really important to note that like, if you are feeling drained or exhausted mentally, physically, whatever it is, it's really important to acknowledge that. So that's where that line kind of stems from. Like, I'm just tired of pretending I'm fine and everything's okay.
Good. Okay. So let's go to after the first chorus, or actually everybody, we're going to skip the chorus and save that for her performance at the end. Within the second verse, you have a part that starts with I'm so lost. Can you play that little section for us?
You got it. I'm so lost. Someone rearrange these thoughts. If these walls could talk, I'd say get up, get out, keep your fingers crossed.
So where did that come from with the walls, where the walls could talk? What's that?
I feel like, I'm sure other people relate to this, but for me personally, when we're kind of trapped within the confines of our own struggles, you almost set up walls around yourself. Like literally, you could literally be sitting in a room, shut the door, and there are walls around you, or the walls within your mind that you put up there. And the idea is, you know, you're the only one who really truly knows the struggle that you are going through. It is unique to everybody in their own right. And I feel like a lot of these moments, whether it's you're literally in a room by yourself or the walls of your mind are built up and shutting everything out, the only two, I would say, like beings, I guess, that know what's going on and what you're really going through are you and the walls. And if those walls could talk, I mean, they would really share the really deep, gritty, hard truth of what you're going through.
A little interesting line in the chorus. It says, here's to the makeup stains on the sofa arm. Can you explain what that is?
So a lot of the lyrics in this song are like visual representations of at least for like what I go through, and I'm sure a lot of other people can relate to. So makeup stains on the sofa arm. It's to all the people that have fallen asleep crying on the couch, and you know, mascara and lipstick and whatever is not where it's supposed to be. And it's just really recognizing the hard, messy truth of what you're going through, but you know, it's okay.
All right, great. So why don't you now play the full bridge for us?
I tell myself things I never say, to my worst enemy on my worst day. Oh, despite the pain, all the things that I can't change, passing time, endless rain, a flooded eyes, they wash away. With you, I'd always keep the same.
All right, that's really nice. The second line of the bridge, you say, to my worst enemy on my worst day. What's that?
So I think that we are our own worst critics, and we can, just as much as we can build ourselves back up again and find the strength to keep going, carry through, keep going on, we can also be such bullies to ourselves at the same time, especially in that internal struggle of mental health. Quite often we find ourselves on the latter part of that, of just really tearing yourself down. So that line kind of lends itself to the idea of I really beat myself up more than anyone I know. I wouldn't treat somebody else the way that my mind can treat me sometimes. And the entire line of the song is I tell myself things I'd never say to my worst enemy on my worst day.
Nice, okay. So we've been holding back. So why don't you perform the entire song for us? And then afterwards, we'll have some final words. I'll put in the chat the link to the video and remind people that this is Gina Royale, and now she's going to perform Here's to You for you guys.
Thank you, awesome. I'm tired of fighting with myself. I'm tired living in this living hell. I'm tired of convincing myself I'm not tired. I'm so cold. Someone activate these bones. Too weak to stand on my own. You need to get up, shut up, lose what you can't control. So here's to you. Here's to the broken lamp on the bedroom floor when you had too much to think. Here's to you. All of the afternoons with the curtains pulled removed, dancing with the pain. Here's to you. It's sick how it's come to this, broken pieces I can't fix. I'm sick of making myself so sick. I'm so lost. Someone rearrange these thoughts. If these walls could talk, they'd say, get up, get out, keep your fingers crossed. Here's to you. Here's to the makeup stains on the sofa arm, 'cause you had too much to feel. Here's to you. All of the miles pacing back and forth the room, the long walks in your head. Here's to you. I tell myself things I never say, to my worst enemy on my worst day. Oh, despite the pain, all the things that I can't change, passing time, endless rain, flooded eyes, they wash away. With you, I'd always keep the same. Here's to you. All the pressure building in my lungs, who knew that the air was weighted. Here's to you. Making amends and stitching up. days. Here's to you. I'm tired of convincing myself I'm not tired.
That was nice. That was really good. So
Thank you.
thank you, Gina. Thank you for Here's to You. I'll put for everybody in the chat the link to Here's to You so you guys can check out the video. Don't forget, we're talking about Gina Royale. Here's to You. Stream it anywhere you guys like. Portia, thank you again for doing this and hosting this. It's really important to talk about, especially in the month of May, Mental Health Awareness Month. And thanks for having us both today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Gina, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, this is so important to talk about. I really appreciate using your platform to share my message.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us. And Dave, thanks for moderating. It was awesome and fascinating to break down the song.
Cool.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right, everybody. For our final panel, we're a great bunch of people from a lot of different parts of the industry, which is exciting. So this is called Being Mindful of Your Greatest Assets, your staff, your artists, and your students. And really what we're going to do is take a look at how companies across the industry are supporting their artists and their employees in terms of mental health and wellness. So welcome to my panel. Everybody just come on up. Cool, thanks for joining us today, you guys. So I just want to jump right on in and let each person introduce him or herself as I call upon you, if that works out for you. Brandon, I'm going to pick on you first. You work at TikTok, and TikTok has actually been doing quite a lot in terms of supporting its employees through the pandemic and sort of on a broader scale, right?
Yeah, we have. And hello, everybody. I'm Brandon Holman. I'm from the label partnerships team at TikTok. Been with the company for a little over a year, was one of the first waves of employees during the work from home COVID era, and been really impressed with some of the things that TikTok has done for both its employees and its users. Internally at the company, the team pretty quickly created wellness programs and packages for employees. They gave us Headspace subscriptions, which allowed us to meditate and take care of our minds. They implemented no meeting blocks to give us some time back, since we all know that we're working more than when we were before in the office. And they also instituted some like breathwork sessions, some sound bowl sessions, and just different ways and opportunities to allow employees to like really focus on their mind, body, and spirit. For some of the users, one thing that I'm really excited about last month and going all throughout Mental Health Awareness Month, we launched a wellness hub on TikTok, and it's like a special section of the app which is like dedicated to mental well-being. We're featuring creators from nutrition, from fitness, mental health advocates, and even artists are featured in that hub as well. And it's just like a really great place to both learn and to connect with the community that's talking about such a timely topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Gloria, I want to bring you in from the academic perspective. You are an associate professor at MTSU here in Nashville. So thank you for joining us today.
For having me. And yes, I'm real excited to be here. It's a passion of mine to focus on students and mental health, and specifically students in the music industry. And we've seen, I don't know how much details you want me to go into, but we've just seen a lot of the impact on our students, which at our university, the College of Media and Entertainment, we have journalism, media arts, and recording industry. And within our recording industry department, that includes our music business students, audio production students, and commercial songwriting. So all the creatives underneath one roof. And what we have seen is an increase of mental health challenges among that college, and not just what we've seen visually, but backed up by research and surveys from our own student health department at the university, who've done their own studies, where our students have been struggling more with things compared to other students on campus. For instance, just to give you a couple of stats, 80% of our students reported feeling very sad. That's compared to only 71% of total students in the population of the University of Middle Tennessee, which is probably about 20,000 students. We have 66% in college and media entertainment that reported so depressed it was difficult to function. That's the way it was worded. So depressed it was difficult to function, compared to only 49%, the general population of students. And 85, almost 86% reporting feeling overwhelmed anxiety. And that was compared to only 72% of the total population. And one more, almost 30% reported seriously considering suicide, compared with only 17% of the total population of our students. So when we got that information, and this is actually before COVID, when we got that information, we felt like we had to do something. That obviously our students were hurting, were having challenges. And, you know, this is a survey that's done around the country, and our health department broke it down by our colleges, but you can see that at some other universities that in the music industry type of programs, our students are suffering. So we did a number of things. And one of the things our dean started right away was put together a student mental health task force, which is made up of faculty members that, you know, we basically meet to try to come up with ways to help our students. And we had just kind of launched a couple of months before COVID. So we had to kind of change the way we were doing things. We had just started some things on the ground, offering up, for instance, we had a grateful board, and we encouraged students to stop by. We always had giveaways, and they would write what they're thankful for or grateful for that day, put it on the board so that other students would see it, but so that when they walk by, they would see it again. And we continued that through COVID, even though we were probably 90% remote at that point. But we did a number of other things. We started a mental health Monday, which we would rotate different things we'd offer. One of the most popular being our pet therapy. We would bring pets in to the building, and students could just, you know, I think we forget that the college students, most of them are away from home. Even if they're in the same state or the same city, they're probably living in apartments or on campus. They're away from their family, they're away from their family pets. And so, so we found that to be one of the most well-attended things. But there were a number of other things that we also incorporated with just trying to reach our students through connecting them with podcasts that focused on mental health issues. We also had a student wellness week, because one of the things that they are struggling with, especially last year in the last 14 months, is this increased anxiety of, we're getting ready to graduate in a program we just spent a lot of money on, and now you're telling us that the music industry is blown up because of COVID and the economy and live not going anywhere for over a year. What are we going to do? We're not going to find a job. We've got all these student loan debts, you know. So it was increased anxiety above what we already knew that was happening. And so we had a student wellness in the workplace, where we brought in people. We had a panel of people that just discussed working in the workplace. We did a stress management workshop. We did a time management workshop, reducing anxiety workshop, and we even did meditation. We had a meditation workshop. And just for a full week in April, we just offered a lot of different things to sort of help these juniors and seniors to kind of calm down. It's going to be okay. We'll make it work. So we've been working on doing a lot of things as a college, and also the university has been doing things to help our students. So I'm so excited that Music Biz is focused on this, because I also think that college students get left out of the conversation nationally. We always heard about K through 12, and I have utmost respect for teachers and kids in that age group. But the 18 to 25-year-olds that are supposed to be adults and figuring it out, and so that's how they're treated. I think they got left out of the conversation of their struggles, of things that are already challenging for them. And then you add the pandemic and everything, all the shifting that they had to do as well. And so, so yeah, we've been trying to do a little bit of everything.
Gloria, that's so inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. That's so like, wow, that's a lot. You guys,
we got to work.
Yeah, for real. All right, Paige, I'm gonna pull you in here because you are a retail store. So that's a different segment of the music industry population, and one that, you know, has kind of a different group of people, but clearly people who need to be supported during this time too.
Indeed, and one of the things that I learned from the pandemic is how large a percentage of our staff struggles daily with anxiety issues, which became exacerbated by the pandemic and led to real concerns. While much of the country was at home, our staff was coming to work every day, interacting with the public, concerned about getting COVID. This is, you know, back in the times where we didn't know yet exactly how effective masking was. And we're lucky to be in a place where mask mandates came early and are still in effect, and it was very normalized, and we're grateful that they're as effective as they are. So that was one challenge of retail. People were talking about, you know, it being too quiet. Their lives are so quiet now. They don't get any social interaction. And I was like, I'll trade you some. I'm getting tons of social interaction every day. And because we're an independent retail with a, you know, relatively small staff, the things that we have been doing to support the staff's mental health are less policy driven and more kind of cultural, you know, because it's a small group and because everybody knows everyone, which, you know, in a large organization, you know, isn't necessarily scalable other than, you know, by teams and departments. But, you know, I think that the number one biggest thing that an employer can do to help their employees' wellness, one of the biggest things, is to do whatever you can to make them feel safe when they're at work. And in this case, that was safe from a pandemic, but it also means safe from harm that, you know, that customers could potentially bring, or, you know, for people that work in a more like physically dangerous workspace, you know, making the employees aware that you take their safety seriously. And there are little things that you can do to help that cause. Like during our shutdown, when we were all at home for, it's about 5 or 6 weeks or so, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to be in touch with each employee at least once a week. And it involved doing things like, well, what communication method works best for these employees? For some people, it's a phone call. For some people, it's texting. For other people, it's email. And just taking into account everybody's individual differences, just in order to do the thing where you're reaching out and saying, I care, we're all going to be okay, we don't know what's going to happen, but all of us together don't know what's going to happen, and we're going to get through it somehow. So I think that policies can help, and certainly like what Gloria was talking about, different practices, and, you know, having a meditation day, bringing pets to work, very good one. But I think that for a smaller company, it's less about policy and more about just displaying it to each other. And during the pandemic, the wildfires came very, very close to my house, like within 20 feet. And so I had this extended 6-week evacuation from my home. And all of a sudden I realized that what I had been trying to give to the staff, all of a sudden they were giving back to me. And I was like, oh, I get included in this too. I get supported during my challenges. And I was like, oh, right, it's a big circle. That's how this is supposed to work. So that's my 2 cents.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, Adonis, I'm going to put you on the hot seat now. In addition to sort of telling us what's been going on in your workplace, obviously you do A&R, so you work with artists. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you've been able to support the artists you work with as well.
For sure. Hello, my name is Adonis Sutherland, A&R at RCA. I've been with the company for it'll be 15 years in November. So it's been a long run. And we at RCA, we really try to keep everything is so family ran. A lot of us have worked together for a very long time. And so during the pandemic, it was really more so about us just checking in with each other and continuing to make sure you're okay. And I feel like when we started to ask the questions like, how are you doing? It was like, you actually meant like, how are you doing? Like it was there for us. And we tried to expand that to the artists as well, because at the end of the day, you're only as good as you are. Mentally, you have to be there in order to be able to run around and be able to help the artists and be able to get the artists through whatever they're going through. And I'd say 3 weeks into the pandemic, I had to tell the artists that we're not going to put out the album, and instead we're going to find a treatment center for you in order to get you help. And we ended up having to find that place for her, pick her up from the airport, drop her off. Our company paid for it. It was life changing for her. Even only being in 30 days, it was a different thing. And I think that just shows what RCA is about and how we approach things, and the fact that we were even willing to pay for it. And we weren't saying, well, let's get the album out first and then let's put you somewhere. It was like, let's hold on the album until you're ready, and then we will move from there. And that kind of morphed into us starting a task force, and I became co-chair of the mental health and wellness committee since I was kind of dealing with it already in my own journeys and things that I've been through personally, and the things that I've had to do with artists, and just being that shoulder to lean on even for executives within the company. As you mentioned, like some of the college kids, so a lot of the kids with us, they're just starting. Some just moved from New York. Some just moved from cross country to work in music, and all of a sudden it shuts down. And so I kept my place. I have a home office, and I kept that open for a few of the young kids to be able to come through and have a place of refuge during this time where we're in lockdown. And I knew they took it serious. I knew they really didn't want to be the person to give me COVID, because that would have been a whole other issue. So you can tell they actually took it serious. They're home. Some of them live solo. Some of them live with roommates that they're not close with. They kind of just met. And so it was just like a way for us to continue to reach back and give to them. So we've created an employee toolbox it just gives you all of the resources, all the benefits, because we have so many that people just weren't aware of. I don't think people understood that you have 6 free counseling sessions with an in-house therapist at Sony. And then if you need to go further, they will recommend you to someone. I don't think people understood that. Some people didn't even know that therapy is covered under health insurance. Like it's that small, or how to find a therapist, or how to find a therapist that can understand what weird fucking business we work in, where it's not the same. It's like, well, why are you working those hours? You shouldn't be doing that. Well, it's what we do. So it's just been trying to help that, and just as Paige said, just not a whole lot of policy, but more just leading by action and giving, being open and vulnerable and talking to people and sharing our own experiences and just keeping that communal space so people feel comfortable enough to be able to speak about where they are in their life, their mental health, their where what's going right, what's not going right. We have a couple programs now where we paired some of the younger. We're going to start pairing the younger staff with senior staff members that they normally wouldn't talk to, and it's just like a mentorship program internally, so they could, because you just don't know. You never know how you're going to click with somebody. I'm going to learn from you just as much as you're going to learn from me, hopefully. And you know, that's just what we do. Being an intern coming there as an intern and being the in between the Peter Edges and the young guy and the super young guys, just kind of being a hybrid and being able to talk to both. Is I get to see a lot and try to connect the dots, bridge the gaps, and our language and communication and how we deal with the artists and everybody, because it's a different, you have to be an empathetic leader now. It's the days of throwing shit and being mean and that's over. It doesn't work, and it probably shouldn't have happened then, but it did, and it was fun. But now it's like you have to care. Like in order to get others to care, you have to care, and that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to normalize that in everything that we do.
That's awesome. That's really great. And Doc, I feel like we can bring you in here. I mean, you can certainly speak to having to care, right, in the music industry. Does that feel like where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are all like, you know, hit it from, I've been doing this 45 years with, you know, arguably probably 10 of the biggest acts in the world. And I don't know if I've ever had an artist that didn't have depression, that didn't have some sort of family problems, to marital problems, to just all kinds, to drug addiction, to sexual addiction, to you name it. I probably had artists that fall under all those categories. And it's really nice to see that everybody's starting to recognize it and actually put things into place to try to bring kids into, and everybody's into kind of a prevention, or not really prevention, but kind of a treatment of these kids. And I kind of, because I'm in a much smaller place than everybody else, okay, because I have like one artist or two artists or three artists or maybe five artists at one time that'll be working. But what I try to do is try to work into the prevention of it, to where they can understand why they're doing stuff. I'm not a therapist. I'm just trying to get on life myself. But I know that from my experience, the enabling of somebody and not facing their problems and skirting their problems makes it worse than if you just, you know, go right into it and let them realize that this is life and you have to get through it, and you got to, you know, it's not babying people, and it's not telling them, it's, hey, you know, you have to get with whatever zailing we work on, regardless of what it is. If it's drug addiction, go get help. Let's get you help. You know, I in 1987, I quit Motley Crue. We had a European tour, and I said, I quit. Okay, I didn't come here to watch you guys die, okay, out on the road. And I put them into rehab, and pretty successful. I mean, sometimes sobriety's not for everybody, but it's worked for a bunch of people. And so that was kind of like the starting of trying to understand how to help people for me, you know, with also I had family people. I had my family that had drug addiction and mental health, and I'm probably kind of that way too. I don't know. You know, you never think you are when you're that person, but at any rate, you know, you see enough of this and you know that it kind of drains into your being as well. So the mental health prospect of help that all you people are, you know, given a lot of time and a lot of effort to do is only going to help us. I think that, you know, all of us, and help the artists. I think that our biggest problem is the home unit before they get to us that is not educated enough for people to work with their kids in the right way, then because by the time we get them, sometimes they're really damaged in their perspectives of life. And so, you know, again, the best thing for me that I can come up with is I always sit and talk it out, you know, and if you talk to somebody enough, they'll open up and they'll tell you what it is, and you don't have any answers. The biggest thing is probably listening, you know, more to hear what people are trying to tell you than try to tell people. I don't have a lot of things to tell people other than trying to understand where they're at in life and try to help them get through it. But it's you know, hey, the mind's a fucked up thing, you know. It really is, and you really have to, and life comes at you fast. So you know, you just, for us, I just try to make them not victims. So when they go home, they don't feel like they're victims every day. And unfortunately, our society teaches people to be victims. You know, no matter what you do, you're a victim. If you use baby powder, you can sue. If you did this, you could sue. You drive a car and get in a crash, it's the car's fault. It's not that you were an idiot. The teacher fired, you know, if you get thrown out of school, it's because the teacher doesn't like you, not that you're an idiot. Okay, so I think it's the concept has to go back to, you know, you got to be responsible for yourself and understand what your role in this life is. And you can go either way when you wake up in the morning. You want to go dark side, or you want to go to the right side. So I think, you know, I don't have any degrees like all you got, you know, a lot of you guys do and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, MTSU is a great college. I've hired 7 people from that college. And actually, unfortunately, one of them committed suicide, you know, which was terrible, you know, about 10 years ago, but young kid. So all those things are, it's very hard to, I mean, all these programs are fantastic for people to go to. I've sent people to programs. You know, for me, my thing is I kind of try to be dad, and I kind of try to be that person that they can talk to if they're going south, that, you know, somebody can call on the phone anytime, day or night, and talk about shit. Because I think people want to be heard, and they want to have somebody to listen to them. That's one of the things I've gotten out of it. I've gotten more out of sitting there, probably not saying anything on a phone call for an hour and a half, just sitting there. Now, I only make a few noises so they know I didn't hang up. But yeah, but I try to just listen to them and let them ramble and ramble and ramble, and pretty soon they kind of almost fix themselves. They kind of start, not fix it, but they kind of help themselves talk through their own problems. So I don't have any scientific way of doing this like a lot of people do. I just try to be as real as I can and try to get people to feel good about themselves and what they're doing, and empower them, you know, to be better.
I think you've got a good insight, Doc, in terms of, you know, people need to be listened to, and people need to know that they can open up. And I'm thinking about, you know, what Adonis was saying about giving people, just telling people that there are resources out there, because a lot of times people just don't know what the options are. They don't know that there's a place that you can go to get free mental health counseling. They don't know, you know, that you can call somebody up and just talk. And you know, sometimes people feel like they can't talk, or they don't have a person to talk to. They don't have someone in their life. So that's, you know, that's one of the things that I think a lot of folks in this business are trying to change.
Yeah, what I find is that most of mine know that there's enough things to go do if you have problems, but they don't want to face the problem that they have, number one, and 2, they don't want anybody to know that they have a problem. So they go, you know, I don't need that. You know, I don't need rehab. I don't need to sit and talk to some idiot. You know what I mean? And you go, okay. And then if you let them continue on for however long they want to ramble, they talk themselves into telling you how much they need somebody to talk to. So it's, yes, to show people that there is things out there, but most people in my business or that I run into, they know that there's programs out there. They just don't want to go do them. They don't want to show people that they're, well, Adonis, you know what it's like with an artist. They, like you said, it's a facade that they're like Gaga and everybody else. I mean, they're very talented, but artists are mostly on a very strong side of autistic in the sense that they don't focus on the middle like everybody else focuses. Okay, so they focus way left or right. So they're fishing in deep water to begin with. Okay, so they don't want to be in the middle. Most of them are the ones that I end up with. They're out there and they express themselves. So not too many people relate to them. They're pretty introverts. Most of them are pretty much introverts. And so it's just a matter of most of them have never been sat and talked to.
Right. And even knowing that, like, even being able to speak to an executive that they trust and then realizing, oh shit, they've been fuck ups too. They've done the exact same. They've been through some of the things that I've been through. Just being, like, for me, I've been fortunate and unfortunate enough to be able to share my journey and speak on some of the things that I've went through and make them realize that it doesn't dull your knife. It doesn't take away your ability to be creative. It doesn't take away your ability to be the special artist. It actually helps you tap in deeper. But it sometimes you got to hear from somebody that feels like you, that looks like you, that talks the same language, speaks the same language. It can't come from someone that they don't trust yet, or that they don't feel like go through the same things that they go through. And that's why it was important for me to dive in and speak to them in that way, to let them feel comfortable.
And also you can see with like Gina, who was at the beginning of the program, where she sang the song and wrote the song and played it. I don't know if everybody saw it or not, but that's a huge way that artists become artists, is because they will express what is mentally going on with them that they can't tell anybody else. Okay. So, I mean, I signed a little girl that was 17 years old called Bonnie McKee. Okay. She's a massive songwriter. And when she was 17, she wrote this album like Carole King, but it was so dark. It was about teenage suicide. It was about all the shit that was going on with her. It was very well done. And Tom Wally was the first signing at Warner Brothers. But it was so dark because she was dark. She was so troubled. And, again, you see Adele, when she sings her song, she lived every moment of that. All that stuff, Fiona Apple. You can go on and on and on with all the people that try to get some sort of, try to get it off their chest. So the artists really get into their music. Really, you listen to their music, you kind of see where they're at.
Yeah, and Sully Erna from Godsmack.
Yeah, Sully's a perfect example of it.
Yeah, he was saying in that interview that he feels like you write that song, you put it out there, and you feel a tiny bit better when it's written, and then you feel even better when you realize that song helps other people. Like, even if it just helps one other person feel better, and maybe not, do something extreme. That's super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's where we're at in the industry right now, is that we're trying to, make sure that we have, resources available to artists and to everyone who's working in the industry. And, to touch on what you said, Adonis, it's like, that's another reason we have a big job to make sure that this industry is diversified properly, because we got to have people who look like the artists that need help, in positions of power and support, and the ability to support folks. So that's another angle that is really important to what we're talking about. But I think it's really been very inspirational. And I think also the pandemic, I feel like there keep being silver linings about this stupid pandemic, and one of them is that, like, nobody can now say that, like, oh yeah, people with mental health problems are those people over there, because we have all got mental health problems. Like staying inside your house for a year is not good for anybody on any level. So, you know, that like we figured out we're all in the same boat. So, you know,
Yeah.
we're going to try to reduce that stigma as much as possible going forward for everybody.
I want to throw one other thing out there that we haven't really talked about, and I know we don't have time, but in addition to the artists, we can't forget all the behind the scenes people, because which is actually the majority of our students are going to out to be managers, agents, road managers, you know, publishing, whatever, and marketing people. And the mental health burden that they carry oftentimes, because they are the person that the artist may be coming to talk and lay that burden on them, in addition to dealing with their own stuff and having to, you know, kind of keep the artists happy and upbeat, and, you know, say all the right things so that you can keep the artists on track. But then they have to deal with their own stuff as well. And so, you know, we need to remember the teams around the artists are struggling. You know, I think I read something a couple of months ago, an article, 9 out of 10 musicians were struggling with mental health issues. And, you know, so the bands and all the other road crew, that, you know, there's a lot that they've had to deal with as well, not being on the road and not having that income. But it hasn't just been COVID with our students. You know, I feel it even as a professor, that, you know, our burden of, we've got to stay upbeat and help our students through this. And then by the time we got used to, okay, we're going to be in COVID for a while, then we got hit with last summer and all the protests and the social injustices and other things that were the racial inequality and the shootings. And again, a bigger thing than what we can talk about, but it all impacts mental health, and it impacts the students, especially students of color. And so that's other things I know that we've been dealing with, academically speaking, with our students over the last 15 months. Has not just been about the pandemic. It's been about everything from politics to protests that have happened in the last 14 months. And so
Absolutely. Well,
it's
thank
really
you for
hard
bringing
to-
that up. We are out of time. I could talk to you guys forever. Sorry about the shortness of this, but thank you so much for joining me today, and take care, everybody.